You are listening to the Not Neurotypical Podcast. I'm your host, Zdan, and this podcast is all about being neurodivergent in a really neurotypical world. I am a married mom of three, I'm trying to stay married, and I also work, I try to work. Anyway, if you don't mind me using you as therapy, strap on your seatbelts, hold on tight, because it's probably going to be a bumpy ride. I want to welcome you here today to episode 1, and I'm so happy that you're taking the time to listen to this, but I wanted to share 2 quick things that I want you to remember while you're listening. One is that I will always be coming at you my true, authentic, and genuine self. And 2, please have mercy on me for this episode because I recorded this episode when I was deep in the weeds experiencing what I will be talking about. And I just want to share that I was not fully educated on the subjects that I'm talking about. And if I recorded them today, some wording and things like that may have been worded differently, or I would have been a little more mindful or even more educated and conscious about the choices of wording that I used. So please go easy on me, and I welcome any criticism, but at the same time, I want to make sure that you understand that everything is my true, authentic, real feelings and emotions and what I was going through, and I'm sharing it genuinely because I know so many people are going through what I have gone through the past couple months. So please enjoy episode 1 of the Not Neurotypical Podcast. Okay, y'all. I have had the craziest 3-4 days ever, and I'll tell you why. I just found out that I may have autism at 34. I'm a mother of 3. I'm a professional organizer. I'm a coach. Pretty much kind of have my life together. Diagnosed with ADHD as a girl around 12 in the 90s when autism wasn't really talked about much. All we really knew about it was from Rain Man. That's about it. But recently, about 3 to 4 weeks ago, my son was diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder. He also had ADHD. He was diagnosed about 2 years ago. He's medicated for it. I'm medicated for ADHD. But I just noticed some things that I thought maybe weren't normal, for lack of a better word, but concerns, I should say. And I started bringing them up to doctors even as early as 2. And it was always like, oh no, it's probably fine. Come 4, there wasn't too many issues beyond what I noticed at 2, but especially school aged, I started to notice some things. I'm thinking it's just really bad ADHD. Get him diagnosed with that. Okay, everything's going to plan. But there was some more developmental things that I noticed, so I just stuck with it. Eventually got him an evaluation with a child development neuropsychologist. And he was just diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder. For lack of better terms to describe the report, high functioning level 1 support. So that's what he was diagnosed with. Formerly Asperger's, basically. And admittedly, not knowing really anything about autism, what it can look like, or any of that, how to help it, how to be a mother to a child with autism, I started diving in, as I do, doing all of my research, and it all started to click. I totally agreed with the diagnosis. I felt like, okay, I felt good. I'm like, I know how to help him be successful. Now I know what to do. This is all making sense. But then as I really looked, I started to notice similarities in myself that I was still dealing with as an adult, things I dealt with as a kid that were aligning with my research. And the truth is that ADHD overlaps a lot of the symptoms. So at first, that was really it. That's all I was thinking of. Oh, wow, that's interesting. My ADHD is like that. My ADHD is like that. And all these years, honestly, I've thought I have the worst ADHD ever. But one day, honestly, about 3 or 4 days ago, I was in this Facebook group, and it's this really amazing group. It is a group for autistic people to share with neurotypical parents that have children with autism, but all are welcome. I mean, it's not just neurotypical parents, but it's a way for neurotypical parents to be able to get insight, and autistic people get to share what their parents did, what didn't work, what they enjoyed. It's a really, really great group. But this one woman posted in the group, and she posted the AQ test, which is a autism spectrum self-test. It's called the Autism Spectrum Quotient, I believe, or just the Autism Quotient. Anyway, without thinking, I just opened it up and took it, probably just thinking that would be interesting to know more. And I scored a 40 out of 50, which is high probability. The funny thing is, a couple questions in, I was already like, oh no. It's like a ton of bricks just hit me. 2 questions in, I could tell, holy crap, this is me. So I went back to that post and I commented and I said, I just got a 40 out of 50. I don't really know how to process that. Does anyone have any suggestions? And the first comment, really within like 30 seconds, a woman said, I suggest that you go ahead and research what autism looks like in girls and women and learn more about it and see if you align with that. And that's exactly what I did. And I found this list, and I will link it, but holy crap, this list. I would say I 100% aligned with 95% of what was on the list. And not only that, I ended up, as I was processing all of this and realizing that there is a large chance that I have autism, I started to process other things and break down some walls and realize that I aligned with even more than I realized that first time I looked at the test. So I would say 98% of the things on this list that is specialized for women and girls, I aligned with. And I've had some ups and downs, and I really wanted to share it because if you do a little research or go in a couple autism groups, you will see tons of mothers who got diagnosed because their children were diagnosed. It's just something that's happening because when we were kids, I'm 34, me and anyone older than me, we did not have the knowledge and understanding, especially as women and girls, to get a proper diagnosis unless I think you had developmental delays or just major symptoms that were very prevalent then in the 90s, 80s, 70s. I think you had to just have very strong symptoms for anyone to recognize it. And the crazy thing is, though, is all these years, I thought I was a certain way, and I just wasn't. I never picked up on this stuff. I thought I was really, really good at communication. And what I didn't realize is that communication is 2 ways. So just because I could communicate my feelings and where I was doesn't mean that I could receive the communication in the same way. And over the last 3 days, I think that is the largest eye-opening thing that I've experienced because my reaction was to take every test I could. I took any autism test you could take online, I took. And there was one where you looked at faces and had to do multiple choice to figure them out, like what the person's face was describing or what emotion they were feeling. And the first time in my life, I realized that I was really bad at it. Really bad. The one face, especially, there was one specific face that I literally thought looked happy, and all of the options were really negative. And I'm thinking, what's wrong with me? The thing is, though, is that I really struggled on that test, but I was able to do educated guesses, and I actually scored okay on it. The only thing was the time. I definitely took a lot longer to process than the average person, because they gave you results right after the test. And then the other part of the test was hearing people say things and having to describe what their emotions are. So you hear words and their tone and have to process it. And I did okay on that one too, but the faces especially, I really struggled with. And that's something that I never knew. I never knew socially I had an issue. And immediately when I started to learn more about this and figure this all out, I felt the mask coming off. And the mask that I've been wearing my whole life, I'm tearing up. I didn't even know I was wearing a mask. Until 2 days ago. It's not easy for me to cry on here, so I apologize, but it's so overwhelming in a positive and a negative way, a very complex way. But I'm 34 years old, and I've been wearing a mask since before I can even remember. I've been compensating in ways that I never even knew. I've been not being myself for 34 years. And in a way, it's really sad, but in another way, I am so thankful and excited that I live in a time where I even have the option to self-diagnose and figure this out. And I don't know exactly where I'm going from here. I have scheduled an evaluation, and I'm very excited, but it's 2 weeks away, and this is all I can think about. I haven't been sleeping well. I have been just online reading about this nonstop. It's all I can think about. I'm losing my mind with this. I don't know how I'm going to make it 2 weeks before this evaluation, but I just wanted to share because this is what so many women are going through that suspect they have autism. And I think the most shocking thing for me is that there is not really any specialists for adult women who suspect they have autism. I really couldn't find anything online. I did search mostly in my area. I'm in Philadelphia, PA, and I definitely didn't find anyone here that specializes in women. I only found one doctor that seems to specialize in adults who suspect they have autism, and that's who I've set up the evaluation with. But it is so complex and crazy, and it's so freeing to take this mask off, and so almost devastating at the same time. I'm not sure why. I feel like it's hard to realize that you haven't been yourself for 34 years, but it feels really good to know that you can be now. So I'm processing all of that. and it's special and emotional, which I'm not always very emotional, but wow. Thank you so much for listening and hearing about my primal reaction to the realization that everything, and I mean everything, was about to change in my life. If you would like to connect with me, please reach out to me on Instagram at LauraZdan. That's LauraZdan. Laura Stan on Instagram. I would love to connect with you. Share your story with me. I would love to hear more about you. Until next time, take care of yourself.